Thank you so much for this opportunity to allow me to participate in our church anniversary. Thank you. This is interesting. You did my introduction by asking me to come here. This is a baptistry, is that right? Okay. Choir members, are you comfortable there? Okay, good. In Patterson Street, you would have had to move your chairs to another place because the pool was under the pulpit. Yes. And they had to raise all of these nice places where you're sitting. They raised that up high, and they had already watered it, put the water in with a hose, and we raised it up high, and they did the baptizing there. Now, don't you feel blessed that you don't have to move your chairs and raise this? Then they had to let it back down. Then you had to go get your chairs and put them back where they were. So we're blessed. We've put the used Roman numerals for the three churches. Patterson Street 1, then we'd go to Main Street, Roman numeral 2, and we are now at Roman numeral 3. And I would like to ask those of you in Roman numeral 3, which we're here, to help us keep up with the history of our church. It's difficult to go back and get all of these things. We do have some people who still remember, but we didn't have a video, we didn't have any of these things that you have. So we would like for you to keep up with our history. The choir at Patterson Street was almost a family choir. It was almost a family church because of, well, you know, the social things and everything. I'm not going to talk about that. But we had a Coleman and Griffin family. The deacons knew how to, you know, they led hymns. And they told us a charge to keep I have, a God to glorify. And we knew that that was what we were supposed to sing. So all of that has been nice. However, you have a responsibility now to help us keep it up. It's hard to locate all of that. The war, we had that sort of thing. So transportation was difficult. We did not have a bus. One or two people had cars, and so that's how we went. At that time, Mrs. Maud Crutcher organized a Mount Olive Ladies Quartet, and that way we could travel around in the one car that we had. The members of that quartet were Miss Mary Usher, Miss Emily Robinson, Miss Ada Porter, and Miss Mary Rogers. And we did, the pastor liked to travel, but we were the traveling choir. As I said, we were a family church. The Carson family lived across the street. The Wheeler family lived next door. The church members lived in that Mount Olive vicinity, and they were members of the choir because their parents told them they had to be. We also helped with the musicians. And as soon as we had one that learned a little keyboard, they became pianists for the Sunday school. Do you remember that, Miss Cannon? You were a Sunday school pianist, and that fit into everything. The other thing that we did with our church families, everybody liked to sing. We had a good choir. Mount Olive has always had a good music department, very good choir. And so that was that. But since you don't have to move and do the pulpit and fix the water and put it back down, you're all ready. When we moved to Main Street, I believe we marched to Main Street. The transportation improved. We had a bus. We had more than one car. We became more active. The choir participated in the Billy Graham concert. We sang in that. We went to conventions. The younger people did the early morning service. They liked to have sunrise service. Many of us did not like to have sunrise service, but the youth choir did those services. One of the nicest things was hearing Woodrow Wilson play trumpet up in the mountains somewhere early in the morning. That was always nice. That was our youth choir. We did conventions. The young adult choir did most of the conventions. I think Bernard Clay was their musician at that time. They traveled more. They went to Chicago and to Detroit and sang at the various conventions there. We were involved with the Baptist, American Baptist Seminary, and we were National Baptist Seminary convention. We also set up our own revival choruses. We had to practice maybe for a week or two ahead of time, but we sang every night, and we had pews, and the baptistry was behind us at Main Street. We did not have to let it up and let it down. It was all set there, and there was a glass, I think, behind that, and the choir was in front of that. The music, as usual, was good. We took advantage of college students. So many of our musicians were from Knoxville College and the University of Tennessee. And we paid so much, and that was a big help to them. We paid them $15 a week. And they did a Sunday and 2 rehearsals. But it worked. It was good for them, and it was also good for us. The revival chorus, of course, sometimes people from other churches sang, but we'd had our own revival courses. On revivals then for the choir were 2 weeks. We had to sing for 2 weeks then. Then we moved to, that was the 2. Now 3 was Danridge Avenue, and that's where we are now. And we'd like to ask all of you who are involved to help us maintain the history of the church. It's a lot of work to gather all this up. We did not have the technology that we have now, so we certainly hope that you will continue to do that. We did a record, we recorded some music. We may play that later on for you. I want to thank Ms. Melton for letting us share and do all that. The 2 with the Main Street was our growth section. We had more choirs organized, so we ended up, when we got to Danridge, we had a youth choir, a children's choir, a young adult choir, sanctuary choir, the W.T. Crutcher Gospel Hour choir, and the Voices of Praise choir. We enjoyed all that. We're in a growth period. We were in a growth period then, and you see the result of it here, because when we got to Main Street, we began to have all of the technology, a lot of the things that we did. And we appreciate having so many church families singing in our choir. You remember the Coleman Trio, the Coleman and Griffin Trio, I believe it was. We had a wonderful male chorus, Brother Vance and Wiley Sanders or so. So if you'll help us collect some of these things, and particularly if you have tapes, and you may have little cassette tapes from then, but we have a cassette player, so we could still use them, even though we don't have to use those now. Thank you so much for letting us share about the choir. Thank you so much for all the support that you have given to our musical department through the years. Arranging for rehearsals. Sometimes we've had to move chairs, but we don't have to do that now. We have space. We appreciate all the support that you have given to us, and we are so pleased to have served as a choir, as a ministry of music, our ministers of music, and the very good musicians. Mount Olive has always had very good musicians. Going back to Patterson Street, we had Miss Carrie Glanton Derricks. And she also played as we went there. Mount Olive has always helped pay for the musicians as they went to school. Charles Parris was one of our good organists, and we helped pay his tuition to go to Knoxville College. When he got there, he was one of the few people who could play the monster organ that they had in the chapel. Rochelle Carr was an excellent organist for us for many, many years. And we've just had good musicians, and we still have wonderful musicians. Yeah. I like this young lady, Faith. I remember her from the Community School of the Arts. We did music lessons down there when we took our children down there for activities, and she was one of the students. And she has been following music ever since. She's done a good job. Thank you all for your time. If you have things that you can share with us, please share them so that we can continue to keep up the history of our church, and we can preserve it a little better than we've been able to do in the past. Thank you so much.